Hello and welcome to today's daily devotion as we're working our way through the Gospel of Luke. And today, Jesus gives us some warnings and some talks about the end of the world. Let's take a look. 12 verse 35. Be dressed, ready for service, and keep your lamps burning, like men waiting for their master to return from a wedding banquet, so that when he comes and knocks, they can immediately open the door for him. It will be good for those servants whose master finds them watching when he comes. I tell you the truth, he will dress himself to serve, will have them recline at the table, and will come and wait on them. It will be good for those servants whose master finds them ready, even if he comes in the second or third watch of the night. But understand this, if the owner of the house had known at what hour the thief was coming, he would not have let his house be broken into. You also must be ready, because the Son of Man will come at an hour when you do not expect him. Peter asked, Lord, are you telling this parable to us or to everyone? The Lord answered, who then is the faithful and wise manager, whom the master puts in charge of his servants to give them their food allowance at the proper time? It will be good for that servant whom the master finds doing so when he returns. I tell you the truth, he will put him in charge of all his possessions. But suppose the servant says to himself, my master is taking a long time in coming, and he then begins to beat the men servants and maid servants, and to eat and drink and get drunk. The master of that servant will come on a day when he does not expect him, and at an hour he is not aware of. He will cut him to pieces and assign him a place with the unbelievers. That servant who knows his master's will and does not get ready or does not do what his master wants will be beaten with many blows. But the one who does not know and does things deserving punishment will be beaten with few blows. From everyone who has been given much, much will be demanded, and from the one who has been entrusted with much, much will be asked. Jesus gives us a few different analogies as he talks about the end of the world to the disciples and to the crowds around him. First, he says, you want to be ready. We don't know when Jesus is going to return again. We don't know when the last day will come. For that matter, we don't know when our lives will end. So we don't want to be lazy and just procrastinating, thinking we can put off taking our faith seriously for later in life because you don't know how long you have. But for those who are waiting for Jesus' return and serving him, Jesus says he will come back and the master, he will serve them in thanks for their service. And we're reminded of Jesus on Maundy Thursday. He takes off his cloak, he ties a towel around his waist, and he washes his disciples' feet. Jesus was one that served one another. He makes the point we have no idea when he's coming. Could be in the second watch, could be in the third watch. Anywhere from second watch would be somewhere around 9 to 12 p.m. It might be in the third watch, which would have been 12 to 3 a.m. All sorts of different times that 9 p.m. to 12 a.m. or 12 a.m. to 3 a.m. Sorry about that. It could be many different times during the middle of the night when you're not expecting him. He says he could return at any time, and that will be when that be, no one knows. So we can know that anyone who tries to calculate when Jesus is returning, one, they're wrong, and two, they're even defying God's will because he said that he isn't going to reveal that date to us. What is true of the end of the world is to some extent also true of the end of our lives, though, too, as I said earlier, as the rich fool discovered. And God ends his life. Servants of Christ, we want to be ready, watchful at any time for the Master's return, because Jesus could come back. We could die at any moment. Uh, Peter asks, are you talking to just the disciples? You talking to all of the followers here? And he makes the point. He's talking to everybody, of course, but to leaders in the church, God expects much. And then he talks about those who will be no less, will be punished less. What he's talking about is not everybody is given equal gifts. To the ones that God has given many gifts and many responsibilities, he expects much. And to those that have less gifts, he expects less of them. Um, there will be punishment for a church leader who falls from grace, so to speak, and does not faithfully serve or publicly defames the name of God with sinful living. This punishment, not necessarily referring to eternal punishment, but you can think of, we've seen many church leaders, whether it's in mainline Christendom, which is probably more public in other church bodies, but even within our own church body, there is a huge disgrace to a church leader in his earthly life if he falls from grace and sins publicly that he has to leave the ministry. That's a sad thing and a huge disgrace in this life. So that could be what Jesus is referring to. Obviously, we pray that anyone who sins repents and is forgiven and goes to heaven, but there are earthly consequences to sin too. Let's keep going. Verse 49. I have come to bring fire on the earth, and how I wish it were already kindled. But I have a baptism to undergo. How distressed I am until it is completed. Do you think I came to bring peace on earth? No, I tell you, but division. From now on, there will be five in one family, divided against each other, three against two, and two against three. They will be divided, father against son, and son against father, mother against daughter, and daughter against mother, mother in law against daughter in law, daughter in law against mother in law. The weight of the cross is already heavily weighing on Jesus. And as much as we said earlier, that will be demanded of followers of Jesus, even more was expected and demanded of Jesus. And it's weighing on him. And his own mission, you kind of glimpse a deeply distressed soul in Jesus' words here. On the last day, Jesus will come with judgment and he will destroy the world with fire. And in a sense, whether it is the perverse generation, he's already said, how long do I need to put up with you, that is weighing on him, whether it's the looming cross in his vision, he's saying, oh, in a sense, I wish it would be over already, just get it over with. And not only the death, but ending the world even. But he says, before that can happen, as much as I wish this would just be over, I have a baptism to go over. Go through. He's talking about his death. Uh, compare baptism with death, might reflect in the Great Flood in a sense, all sorts of judgment on the whole world there in death, and yet also saving. Jesus' death obviously saves us, and just as the waters of the flood killed many, many people, it also lifted Noah and his family above the waters and saved them. Baptism also is connected in this, where the Apostle Paul talks about how we are connected to Jesus' death through baptism. And if we're connected to his death, we'll also be connected to his resurrection. Then he talks about, I haven't come to bring peace, but judgment and fighting. That doesn't sound like Jesus. What's he talking about here? God, of course, wants peace. He wants peace for the world, but what humans often refuse his offer of forgiveness and reconciliation. Families will be divided over Jesus and will go, and that will go on till the end. In fact, isn't that what Simeon at the beginning of this gospel promised Mary when Jesus was just a little baby? caused the rising and falling of many, and even a sword piercing her own heart and soul. That's just the sad reality that I've seen families where some are believers and some are not, and the believers, of course, want to live in peace, but there's difficulty because of the unbelievers. I know grandparents who aren't allowed to see their grandkids because the grandparent is a believer and the child is not, and they refuse to let their children hear about Jesus, or they tell the grandparent, if you dare to talk about Jesus, I will cut you off. A sad reality that Jesus brings to this world, not because God desires war or fighting, but because unbelievers reject Him and His grace. Let's finish off verse 54. He said to the crowd, when you see a cloud rising in the west, immediately you say it's going to rain, and it does. And when the south wind blows, you say it's going to be hot, and it is. Hypocrites! You know how to interpret the appearance of the earth and the sky. How is it that you don't know how to interpret this present time? Why don't you judge for yourselves what is right? As you are going with your adversary to the magistrate, try hard to be reconciled to him on the way, or he may drag you off to the judge, and the judge turn you over to the officer, and the officer throw you into prison. I tell you, you will not get out until you have paid the last penny. The world is moving toward God's final judgment, and we we want people to be ready. And so he makes one other picture. First, he criticizes them for their hypocrisy, that people are so good at reading the outward signs, the weather around them, but they're spiritually stupid. They're blind and stubborn to spiritual things. They act as if they don't know any better, and there is no excuse, Jesus is saying, when the end comes. Uh, you are going to face the reality. There is, however, he's continuing to reach out. As long as we are alive, this time of grace, there is time to escape. And he uses another illustration. He uses one of a lawsuit, probably someone who was in great debt to another, and he's saying if you don't try to, whether it's make a payment plan or see if they'll at least accept a lower payment, they're going to take you to jail, and then you're going to be in jail and have to wait until you pay the entire debt off. He's saying, wake up, because something way worse than jail is coming. And unfortunately, these people, he says, they're so good at interpreting the weather, but they're ignorant of the signs of the times. They don't use their wisdom for making sure that they escape spiritual, eternal prison. Jesus' words are strong here. And so we take them to heart, because as servants of Jesus, we want him to find us living for him, serving him, and serving one another when he returns. And the best way to do that is by being in the Word. That's what we're doing here. Being in church, being in Bible study, serving your brothers and sisters at church, praying for them also at home, and serving your family and those around you. These are all ways that Jesus will find us patiently waiting for him when he chooses to come again, which could be today, it could be any day now. So we want to be ready. Let's ask him to help us be ready. Dear Jesus, thank you for living a perfect life, always serving me, and then doing the ultimate service of dying on the cross to take away my every sin. Help me to say thank you to you for your grace all the days of my life, and help me cling close to you and serve you until one day you call me home to heaven, whether you come again on the last day while I'm still alive, or you call me home to glory by ending my life here. Help me to be ready. In your name I pray. Amen. Thanks for joining me. God bless your day, and I will see you next time.